Hello and welcome back to the Scottish Food Show, and here we are in our studio, and today I thought we would do something with pumpkin because there are so many around still. We're in November, for those of you that may be watching at another time of year and just picking it up on YouTube, but we are in November and there's still a lot of surplus pumpkins. And remember, when you're discarding pumpkins, don't toss them out into nature because most animals do not find them palatable, and you can make some of the little creatures quite ill with them. So compost them or put them out with your food waste into somebody else's compost, your food waste bin, but don't just leave them out in nature. So we've got a couple of pumpkins on the go here. We've got your classic one. I got these both at Ardraw's Farm Shop in Fife here. Couldn't resist, even though I hadn't quite got the date right. A year couldn't pass without a funny face. So, but these ones are beautiful as well, and they make a lovely meal for two people. So here we have little pumpkin. Now these are all members of the gourd family, so we're just talking about inflated courgette here. So anything that you could do with a gourd or a pumpkin or a courgette, you can pretty much do with these. Last year at this time we did soup, a lovely spicy soup. The recipe is on the website scottishfoodguide.scot, and this year I thought we would stuff them and do a nice baked savoury main course instead. So you can use, oh, there's the cuckoo. we can use the inside of this one, but I thought it'd be quite nice to do a little one. And as I say, there's a lot of them still in the shops, so look out for them. And it's easy, it's delicious, and it's a wee bit different. And on a dark winter's night, I think you'll enjoy it very much. So I've done one already, and I'm going to do the other half. Now what I did was, I just took a sharp knife and nicked a little bit off the bottom of both. It's easy to do, and it just means when you put them in a dish, they stay nice and flat and firm, which is good, it's helpful. So then the next thing is to do a bit of prep in advance. Find the right dish so that you know you can get both sitting in nicely. If you don't have such a dish, then use an oven tray. You might need a little bit of tinfoil just to hold them in place, just kind of fold it up and lay it round just to keep them in place, but this works beautifully. So what I'm going to do is scoop out the seeds, which is much easier than dealing with a turnip, I can tell you. You'd need to add a few more hours to the procedure. And they've got such a wonderful vibrant colour, which is rather lovely as well. Now you can dry the seeds and roast them in some sunflower oil and salt them for some lovely salted sunflower seeds. Well, sorry, pumpkin seeds, but they do look like sunflower seeds as well. And now what you're going to do is you're going to take out some of that filling. Now you can carry on using your spoon, and it works very well, as you can see, like so. Take the bits out, and I've got a bowl here. I'm going to cut that a little bit smaller before I add it to the bowl. If they're all about evenly sized, they'll cook in the same time. But the other thing, which I do have to say is easier, is if you happen to have a melon baller or something for like potato peeler or something, you can really hack into it because this is stronger than a spoon. So I'm going to do this because it just makes life easier. And this will not only give us our filling, because this is going to go back inside, but it also means that the actual walls of our pumpkin are much thinner, and if they're thinner, they will cook more quickly. So when things are very, very thick, your gourd, your butternut squash, whatever it happens to be, they will take longer to cook. Thinner food takes faster cooking time, uses less fuel. So these little bits are going in my bowl here, and I'll carry on and take out a few more, and then that's that job done. So it's very easy. And it doesn't matter if it's a bit roughly hewn inside, that's part of the charm. Now you can make this vegetarian and entirely have vegetables. I'm not today, but it would be just as easy to make this a vegetarian dish. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to score the insides. Now this means that it'll again help cook it more quickly. So by just scoring it with a knife, you're breaking up that solid mass a little bit, not through the skin, just scoring the surface, and that allows the heat to penetrate better and reduce the cooking time. And then again, a few more slices across the bottom, not through the skin, just scoring the bottom. And that's it, ready for the oven. The oven is preheated about 190, and I'm going to give these a little bit of salt and pepper. I've got some blackthorn salt today, a little bit of salt, like so, a little bit of pepper. These pumpkins and gourds don't have a lot of flavour, but you can impart a lot of flavour and make them beautiful. I'm also going to add some of our marjoram. So take a decent handful and scrunch a little bit in each, like so. A little bit extra put back in the jar. This is the stuff that we dried in the summer, and it will last all year, which is perfect. And now I'm going to take a little bit of Mark's Summer Harvest Rapeseed Oil and drizzle it, because that also helps the cooking to all happen and for the heat to conduct, and it's lovely. So these glistening orange globes are going to go in the oven just to start cooking. That just gets them started, which is good. In it goes. So these we dry them off, and we can roast the seeds. And we now want to get the filling done for our stuffing. And you can put whatever you have. You know, you can really be quite creative with this, because you can be using up what's in the fridge. And what have you got? Well, what have I got in my fridge? Well, for starters, as I said, this is not going to be a vegetarian one, so I'm using some drippings. I've got some lovely dripping just to start the process. If it was vegetarian, or if I didn't have the dripping, then I would carry on with the lovely rapeseed oil. But I do, so I am. And we're going to pop into the pan, first of all, some lovely Ramsay's bacon, which I cut into little pieces just so that it was ready, because that makes it easier to eat when you put it in the stuffing. So we're going to put this in the pan, start the process. Hear the sizzle. There you are. And I'll get a wooden spoon here. Just separate out the bits of bacon so that they're all going to cook individually. And now that I can keep an eye on it, I can keep the heat up as well. So you want everything nice and diced so that it'll tumble into these lovely gourds. So what have I got here? Well, I've got some purple onion, and I'm looking to see which end had the root, because that holds the onion together while I'm slicing. And I want to start from the other end. So I'm going to slice towards, but not through the root. And then slice downwards, keeping my fingers out of the way. Now, it doesn't have to be a red onion. It can be any kind of onion that you have in the fridge, but or in the vegetable basket. But I happen to have a red onion, so in it goes. That little bit of root is a bit bitter, so you just want to leave that tiny little bit into your compost. And we'll put the onions to one side here. Let the bacon continue roasting a little bit first. And I've also got some leftover potatoes. Now, these are raw. We could even put them in if they were cooked, but these happen to be raw. These are Dunbar Rover that we grew in our kitchen garden, and they are from Andrew Ski at Ochterhouse. So it's quite nice when you're buying potatoes to know what they are. So even if you can't grow your own, or you haven't been up to Andrew, then look at the packaging and see what kind of potatoes you're buying. I think one of my pet hates is these white potatoes. They taste of nothing, they are nothing, and they're just a sort of generic. They're really not worth your money. They might seem cheap, but it's not a bargain if they don't taste of much. So buy a potato with a name and you'll get much more flavour. So again, I'm cutting them into small pieces because then they will cook quickly. Nice little dice. These have been peeled, they've been rinsed in cold water, but they are still raw. Now let's just see how our bacon's coming along. So it's sizzling here, a little bit of dripping. We want it to get a nice little bit of colour, because once it's baking in the gourd or the pumpkin, it won't get any more colour. So I want to give it a nice wee roast at the moment. So it's going to sizzle away. So I've moved that little onion root so that I can put my vegetables back in the dish here. Now, what else have I got? Well, obviously, I've got the pumpkin innards. We're going to use that. I've also got some of my homemade pickles and nasturtiums, which will give it a lovely little bit of a pickling effect, which is rather nice. So we'll do that as well. And I'm kind of trying to keep them in sort of evenly sized cubes, because if they're evenly sized, they will cook in an even time. Now, you could also use a little bit of boiled rice in this, or some leftover pasta, but we're a tatty family here, and it's really delicious. The potatoes will absorb the flavours that you're adding as well, which makes it rather delicious. But it's quite nice to have some element of carb in there for your balanced diet and to fill you up on a winter's night. So we've got the onions and the potatoes here, and I can begin to smell the bacon. Our bacon is smoked streaky bacon from Ramsay's of Carluke, one of our favourites for bacon. Brand family larder over in East Lothian. They also do terrific bacon. So again, you get what you pay for with bacon. Now, this gives you a little bit longer to cook on. They're nearly there. We've got the pumpkin ready. So that's going to go in as well, and that'll get roasted. By roasting it just now, you're caramelising your vegetables and you're cooking them in that little bit of delicious roasting fat, and that really adds to the flavour of your finished dish. If you just stir it all in, bung it all in and bake it for an hour, you're going to add to your cooking time and reduce your flavour. So that initial sautéing really adds to the flavour. The food will be cooking, and when it goes into the pumpkins or the gourds, which are already in the oven, getting a chance to start cooking, then the whole process will come together really beautifully. So we'll be back in a minute when that bacon is crispy. Now that the bacon is nice and roasted, we can add in the potatoes and the onions. And they will absorb that beautiful roasting. They'll be really delicious. And we're going to get that back on the cooker and get it sizzling away. And let that roast a bit before we add the pumpkin, because it's the last one that needs the cooking, because it needs the least time. So we're going to add a little bit of salt to this. Not so much salt to this, because bacon is salty, so you don't need quite so much. That's some of our blackthorn salt. Now this is produced in Ayrshire. If you live over in Ayrshire, you've maybe seen the giant blackthorn tower, where they have this giant wooden tower that's been specially built, and they pump the lovely seawater up to the top, and it drizzles down, and because of all the thorns on sloes, you get a great deal of surface area. So there's an evaporation takes place, and by the time the seawater drizzles down to the very bottom of the Blackthorn Tower, then it's extremely salty. A lot of evaporation has occurred, and you need much less fuel to boil the pans for that last little bit to produce the salt. And the salt itself is just not quite pure white because of that lovely thorn. It's almost got a terroir to itself. Well, indeed, it does have a terroir to itself. So it's a lovely salt. We've got some lovely salts in Scotland. Isle of Skye salt, again, very different. Skye water, solar power in that case. So it comes out pure white, and they both are beautiful, and they're both a little bit different. So look out for these pure Scottish salts. They really are quite special and quite delicious. And you're supporting the local economy and local Scottish producers, which, you know me, I feel very strongly about that. We're going to add some black pepper as well. There we go. What other ingredients have we got here? Well, for the end of the time, we've got some wonderful chilli sauce from Allen's Chili. And we're going to use that as a real kick at the end. And you can leave it as a table condiment, and then people who like their food really hot can add as much as they like. And if you're the more, I nearly said timid, but if you're a bit cooler on the chili, then you can add a little bit less. But everybody can make their own decision, and they're beautiful homemade salsas made in pressure. So again, supporting other producers. And of course, as I said, the summer harvest, that's Perthshire as well. So we've got quite a little bit of local produce as always, and all these producers are on scottishfoodguide.scot. I make it my life work to find these lovely producers and share them with you. There is no commission, so you can look on the websites. Often you can buy it by mail order, or their own websites will tell you your nearest stockist, but there's no commission at my end. So what you pay is what they are asking you to pay for the product. So we've got some fantastic products out there. My most recent newsletter, which has just gone out in time for this show, is all about breads and grains. So you can check on scottishfoodguide.scot and see where your nearest baker is. Now let's see how this pan's doing. These are sizzling away. They're looking good. You need to get a nice little roast before they end up in our vegetable. So that's coming along. Now, next in is going to be our pumpkin, and that also will just start cooking. And we'll give that about 5 to 8 minutes, just so that it really has a chance to roast, and then we'll transfer it into our case again. So I've just taken these out of the oven. They have literally had about 20 minutes, and you can see they're roasting beautifully, and they're making a slight little sizzle to themselves, which is just what we want. And if I was to prod them, I would see that they're beginning to soften nicely. They've got a little bit to go, but it's been a real help to give them a kick start, and it can make a difference to that flavour. And they've been roasting in that herb oil we've created. And over here, we've got the lovely mix. Now what you can see is that by putting in the potatoes, along with the pumpkin and the bacon and the red onion, it means you've got a lovely tricolour. You know, you've got some beautiful colours there, and we do eat with our eyes as well. So to make it attractive is lovely as well. Now, if it was a vegetarian version, I might have added some cooked lentils would be nice, or cooked butter beans. You can cook them yourselves, or you can buy it in a tin and drain the tin, add those in, but they need to be cooked before they're added to here, because they need to soak, and they maybe take about 45-50 minutes depending on the bean size as well. Also would work beautifully with the Bercy Mill Bare barley, and add it more like a risotto in there, but again you must soak them, and then they'll need about 40 minutes in total to cook. So they might get part of it in the pan, part of it in there, but you need to, if you're cooking rice or Orkney Bear or something like that, you need to add a little bit of extra liquid because they absorb liquid. So you have to think about that. If you love tomatoes, you could make that liquid a can of tomatoes. I might have added some of my lovely kale from the kitchen garden to this, but if you saw the weather outside, it's blowing a hoolie. I'm not going over the doorstep. So you can add the end of any green vegetables, a few cabbage leaves or some broccoli florets to that, and that would be absolutely lovely as well. If you're having vegetarian, think about your proteins, so having some of those beans in there is quite a good solution for that. But we've got a lovely savoury mix here with that little bit of Ramsay bacon in the bottom, and I'm going to add just a few of our pickled nasturtiums, just a little bit of pecans at the end. They're in a pickling solution, so I'm draining that before I add them, and they will just give a lovely, like a caper, because they're called poor man's capers. I've used them before, you've perhaps seen them in other episodes. So they're going to go in as well. The mixture is seasoned, and now we're going to divide it evenly between them. And it really looks delicious. And because they're already part cooked, while the rest was cooking on the top, I think they'll all be ready in about 20 minutes. I'll keep an eye on it, and I'm wanting the flesh that's against the skins to be perfectly soft, so that it'll melt on the fork, and then it'll be ready. We don't want it to be hard. and just divide it between the two. Now with vegetables, you often get a little bit of moisture, which you want, it's lovely, but you also want it to stay in your little pumpkin. You don't want to lose it out to the dish or to the oven. So a little bit of sourdough breadcrumbs on top seals it in and gives you a nice little crust. So we're going to do that as well. And we've got our own, now this is just whatever I happen to have bought. So given that we're in Aberdour, there's probably a fair bit of Wild Hearth Bakery and Sunrise Bakehouse sourdough ends that we've made into crumbs in here, because we get that at the post and pantry in the village. But if we're in other parts of Scotland, we'll be picking up some bread at other bakers. We've got the cuckoo again, and any little trimmings get put aside. I think I've shown them to you before. They get put aside, they get cut up a little bit to help them dry, and then when they're like that, you can just put them in a mortar and pestle, and they explode into crumbs in a moment. So it doesn't take that much effort to get them into breadcrumbs. Then you've got this lovely homemade breadcrumbs that money can't buy. So we're going to put a little bit over the top, just to give it a nice crispy crust. And there, it's ready to go back in the oven for, I think, about 20 minutes, but I'll keep an eye on them. Now this recipe isn't in our book, but many others are. There's 100 in our book. So if you like what we do, please buy the book. And this recipe will be up on scottishfoodguide.scot. So we'll pop them in and see you in a few minutes. "15 minutes later, and we've got a lovely supper dish. It's ready, it's sizzling, everything's lovely and cooked, and I've finished it off with a little bit of chopped chives. Now you can just have it as it is, or you can put a little scoop of sour cream if you have some on the top, crème fraîche. You can serve it with some salad, and I'm certainly putting some of this lovely chili sauce on top of mine. It will be fantastic. Wow, that will go down a treat for me. But put it on the table, and then others can choose theirs as well. So here it is, ready to go, and have a lovely, healthy, cosy, dry time for November, and see you next month.